Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bell's Backyard Garden. It's the most exciting time for me. We're 4 weeks away from our last frost date, and we're starting to lay the foundation for our garden to make it successful for the rest of the season. Let's get right to work. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to be adjusting our pH, we're going to be laying out our garden, we're going to be amending our soil, and we're also going to be adding our first dose of fertilizer that we're going to be using to set our garden up for success. Now, while I was out preparing for this video, I found some incredibly cool stuff. I think it's going to change the way that we garden. I know it's going to save us time, and I definitely know it's going to save us some money. So stick around and let's get right into this. All right, the first thing that we want to do is adjust our soil pH. Before we put any amendments down, the reason why we want to do that is we want to get it broadcasted evenly across the soil. As we till it up, it's going to change the soil throughout the entire garden. Now, my garden happens to be a very low pH. It's around a 4.5. Most of your summer vegetables are going to want to have a pH between a 6.5 and a 6.8. So in order to get that up, we're going to be using a fast-acting lime, and I'll be putting in, on my 15 by 20 garden, I'm going to be putting in about 8 pounds of this fast-acting lime. Okay, now it's time to start laying our garden out. This one is a 15 by 20. It's 20 feet wide, 15 feet long. My rows are going to be going north to south. There's some arguments that are in there on which way you plant, east, west, north, or south. Don't get caught up in all of the mess. Beginner gardeners, make it north to south. Now we're going to make our rows 24 inches wide with a 36-inch gap. That's going to give me 4 rows in this 15 by 20 garden. All I'm going to use is some stakes, some colored string, and a hammer. All right, with your 25-foot tape measure, we're just going to take and run this thing all the way out. Now you can guess if you want to, but I'm kind of anal retentive and I want to make sure that my garden is not only functional, but it's also pretty. So we're just going to put that out and let it sit right there. Now obviously my first stake is going to go right at the beginning, and then we're going to come over 24 inches. And then I'm going to step over 36 more inches, which is going to get me to 5 feet. Ouch, that hurt. All right, so now we have our first row, and this is going to be our walkway and the start of our second row. And we're going to do this all the way down. Now that we have our rows sectioned off, what I'm going to do is use this twisted mason tie, and it's bright pink, and I'm going to take and tie it to each one of the stakes to line out exactly where my rows are going to be so we can start the tilling process. But we're all staked up and we're ready to go. Now we're going to start tilling our soil for the first time. This is before we put any amendments down. What we want to do is break up the soil, get it kind of loose to make it easier to get to that 8-inch depth, 9-inch depth to till in those amendments. Something I want to show you guys, I'm pretty excited about this thing. I usually don't get excited about rakes and shovels and pitchforks, but this I found at, well, you can kind of guess by the color, but it was one of the big box stores. Now, you're not going to find this in the garden center. Where you're going to find this is in the roofing center. This is actually a shingle fork. It's all metal construction. The thing's about 40 inches tall, relatively heavy, but since it's all metal, the thing just doesn't break. And also the tines on these are a little bit bigger than you're going to find in a regular pitchfork. And one of the other good things, it's about half the stinking cost of a regular garden pitchfork. If your garden's bigger than a 15 by 20, then you can use one of these things. And this is called a broad fork. What this does, it just simply goes into the ground, you step on it, and then pull it back. And it'll loosen the soil up for you that way. These things are pretty expensive. I think this one is a bully fork that I ordered, and I think it came in at about $200. So you just need to weigh what you're going to be using to till your soil. Now I'm just going to take my garden fork here, and I'm just going to work it. I'm just going to lift the soil up for my first pass. Now it's better to do this when your soil's not as wet as this, but Mother Nature's not going to give us that opportunity, and since we are only 4 weeks out, we've got to get this part done. So once I get this one section lifted up, all of this here, this is actually black oats that I'd planted previously. So we're just going to take this and just turn it over one time, just like that. And we're just going to kind of turn it right on top of each other. All right, and that's all we have to do, and we'll just do that for the remainder of the row. All right, once you get that first turn, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of clumps that are in there. Just take your garden fork and just kind of bust those things up. And then if you want to do it just a little bit finer, because we are going to till this a little bit more, then we can go in and we can use our garden rake. Now the garden rake I'm using is a Husky. This is a composite handle, but one of the things I like about this thing, the tines are great, but on the back side of it, instead of just being flat, it actually has, see if I can do that, those little teeth that are in here, just for the purpose of what I was just doing, busting up these big clods. It has like a knife effect, and those little tines that are on it, the shorter ones, helps break those clods up just even a little bit better. So if you haven't gotten your garden rake yet, take a look at this one. If you like what you've seen so far, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. But let's get back to work. Okay, now that we've got our one row done, by the way, this is Betsy. It's a new farm dog that adopted us right before Christmas, and she's just been kind of hanging around ever since. She's turned out to be a really good dog. Back to what I was saying, now that we have that one row that's done, we need to add the amendments to our soil. Nothing that I'm using in this video is sponsored or I'm getting paid for. This is exactly what I'm going to use. It's exactly what you can find readily available at your local big box stores or your local nurseries. I ran into this thing right here. It's called Simple Garden Happy Cow. It's 90% aged compost and 10% aged cow manure. Now, if you saw our video from last week, we determined the porosity of our soils. If you dig a hole that's the size of a 5-gallon bucket, fill it with water. If it drains out in 10 minutes, you're good to go. If it's faster than that, it's too fast, and you need to add compost and an aged cow manure. If it's too slow, if it takes longer than that, then you need to enhance your drainage of your soil by adding compost. Now, this one right here, this bag that I found, not only is it already mixed together, but it's also about 25% cheaper than if I had to mix it myself. So we're going to put this on the garden row. Now, the way that you use this is going to be 10 bags for every 100 square feet. So in my particular row, each row, I'm going to be using 3 bags of the soil, and we're going to put that down. Then we're going to turn it over one more time. All right, now that we got it all laid out, we're just going to kind of even it all out with our garden rake and get it ready to turn it one more time. I want to get it kind of as evenly across the entire bed row as we possibly can. There we go. It's looking good. A little too much down here. I'll just bring some more down. All right. Not overly concerned with getting it perfectly level because we got one more turn that we're going to do. All right. So now we're down to our second turn in our garden. So we're just going to take this, just dig it in, and we're just going to do one more turn. Should turn a little bit easier for you than it did the last time. So we're going to run this entire row, turn this over, and just do it a couple times. Get it all mixed in there as best you can. There we go. Look at that. Boy, that's looking good. Get it all mixed in. So we're going to do the rest of this row, get it all done, and then we're going to add our first fertilizer. All right, now it's time to put in our fertilizer. Now we could go out and mix our own with blood meal, bone meal, and some other organics and mix it into the soil. But for ease and convenience, which is what this entire video is about, we're gonna use one that's already made. Now what we're gonna do is use this Vigoro. It's an organic plant food. It's a 465, so it's kind of a general organic fertilizer that we wanna put into our soil. Now the way that we're gonna put this in, the dose rate to it is 1 cup for every 10 square feet. This particular row has got 30 square feet in it. That's gonna give me 3 cups. So we're going to broadcast that evenly across the soil, turn it one more and final time. Okay, there you have it. The most important thing you could possibly do for your entire gardening season is setting a foundation like we just did. I'm Greg from Bell's Backyard. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now let's go start planting some plants.